he would physically fight you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Don't you recognize me with the cameras?
Yeah.
I'm here photographing you. Do you remember?
I mean, there's a spark of the eternal within everyone.
I was afraid to believe that you were ever coming back.
But I know there's a difference between not actually being alone and then feeling alone.
We are essentially alone in this work. And so I just wanted to be very clear about the fact that it has been a great gift to be in conversation with you, Isadora. I think our choice to pour images into a file folder and see if they would speak to each other was the beginning of this amazing conversation. And what I learned, and I am learning from you, what I learned from your sort of urgent eye, the way you are completely disregarding of what photographers chase as the perfect light, the perfect frame, the way you are drawn with your attention to critical subjects, but more importantly to fragile human beings who need your presence for some reason, has been quite a gift.
Wow. I feel like I'm just going to sit up here and weep the whole time. Thank you, Lynn. This has been a profound experience to get to know you for the purpose of this conversation. And it was an unusual approach for us to make these diptychs. I think that probably wasn't lost on some of the photojournalists in the room. It's pretty unusual to pair the kind of documentary photography we do, this immersive, long-form storytelling, and also to have the images uncredited, where people don't necessarily know which one is yours and which one is mine, or maybe they do. And we worked in collaboration with Jesse Pearlstein, who's a sound artist in Los Angeles, and he used some of our field recordings as the background for the diptychs. I've seen you from afar for a long time. I've seen you at events, and I never approached you because you were one of my heroes. And there's this old saying that you should probably not approach your heroes in fear of disappointment. And I've been looking at your work since I was 13 years old. Your work, amongst many others, comforted me in some of the darkest times in my life. It gave me hope for something greater, and it it brought me into a career, but more importantly, a lifestyle and a way of being that I think has sustained me up until this point. So I would see you from a distance, and us, early career documentarians at National Geographic, we would stand in the corner, and of course everybody would whisper to each other, "There's Lynn Johnson." And I never approached you, and here we are together, and I realized that we have so much to talk about.
We do. And that is bizarre to hear, because I think, when I only think of myself as like a working photographer, I exist when I am behind the camera. And that is what I crave, and I think you do also. And I think this conversation about how do we care? How do we care for the people on the other side of the camera? How do we care for ourselves? What's the impact of the way we choose to live and what we choose to chase in terms of issues and individuals? What is the impact of that practice on the folks on the other side of the camera, as well as the people in our lives?
But do you live to be behind that camera?
Oh my God, I am the most joyful when I am looking through that frame. That's what I thought originally. Now I'm thinking, as I am a senior photographer, now I think that in fact what I am is the most comfortable. That it's not necessarily the most healthy, but it is the pattern that I have lived for so long. And for the first time in my life, I'm beginning to question that pattern, that addiction. Not that it doesn't have value, but it also has a cost.
It's interesting. I've never really associated, as someone who feels an intimate understanding to addiction in my own past and my family and the work that I've done longitudinally with people tracing their experience of substance use or gambling or love addiction and sex addiction over years, and then their transformation from that, their recovery, or the word I prefer, which is integration, right? The idea that we are this fractured plate and we work so hard to then piece those pieces together, and we're there as photojournalists or documentary photographers alongside people witnessing that metamorphosis, or I have been privileged to see that. So I hesitate to use that word addiction. For me, it's this profound feeling to be in communion with people for years. There's just nothing like the feeling that somebody is sharing the deepest parts of themselves, and you are honoring the best of yourself by holding that safely for them, beyond the photography.
Absolutely. All of those things. However, now I'm thinking more about why. Why do we need to do that? And I think that need to be in the presence of powerful human emotions at some level comes from our need, our trauma, what's lacking in us. We look for the fractured person, situation. We look for the intensity because we need that. And I think unless we acknowledge the fact that we also enter in as people searching for who we are, and that's not an ego-based process, but that is a human need to be whole. I think if we can get to that place of practice and that place of creating, what will the work be like then? How will it change how we see, how we are in relationship? Because yes, we must honor the folks who are on the other side of the camera. But we must do that from a place of being whole.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
of course. I mean, I totally agree with that. I have never felt more grounded in the work that I do and more filled with integrity and clarity working with people when I have been operating from a place of wholeness in myself. Of course, I started doing this work when I was 13, 14 years old. I went on the road when I was 16. And when I was 18, I was immersing myself in different families and in moments, documenting, for example, a family in Albuquerque who was, nearly every family member was entrenched in methamphetamine use or methamphetamine trafficking. And I was immersed in this family, and I can recall at 18, 19, with my camera on my lap, sitting on their carpeted floor, that I didn't in moments know where I began, where I ended, and where they began and where I ended. There was a colliding. And now I realize when I create spaces in collaboration with the people I photograph, right? It's both of us. They pick me too. It's a mutual choice where consent is renewed over time, 4, 5, 8, 10 years, like the kind of projects that we've both done. And now what I observe working with people closely is that now that I have been on a journey with my own brokenness and I can safely hold it for myself, the people I shadow trust me even more, because they know that I'm standing on my side of the street and they're standing on theirs, and I'm walking along with them, not in them or around them, but beside them.
Do people ever ask you about your life?
Yeah.
Do you share
Yes.
your side of the street?
If they ask me, yeah. I mean, I'm not sitting there on someone's couch just endlessly sharing about myself, but if they ask me, I share honestly. I mean, the people that I photograph, and I'm sure you share this too, the people whose lives I become a part of, it's not even about the photography at the end of the day for them over those period of years. Yes, they appreciate the evidence, they appreciate the affirmation of reality, they appreciate that the work will eventually be shared with the public and maybe make someone feel less alone. This is some of the feedback I've received. But ultimately, they're in relationship with me. I'm the one in their private space. Right? And the photography is a part of that journey that we're having. Sure, they ask, but also they already know. They're just as intuitive as we are as documentarians. I have felt in moments that sometimes the people I'm photographing know more about me in the immediacy of the connection than I know about them. And I was walking with a woman I've shadowed for the last 6 years, and we were kind of talking through everything that I've bared witness to in her life over the last 6 years, from a period of being unhoused to her entering recovery to finding housing and then getting married to a partner who was the first safe male that she had ever been in relationship with. And she turned to me and she said that you're telling your story, you're telling my story, but you're also, like, in some ways telling your story. And I thought to myself, how do you know that? There was nothing I had really said openly to her, but she sensed something. There's this understanding. Recently I was sitting with a woman I've been photographing in Southern California through her journey in navigating different healthcare systems as an unsighted, as a blind woman. And we were sitting together and she was sharing some very personal details of nuanced life choices that she's had to make, some of which she regrets and some of which she's starting to accept. And I just said to her, I understand. And she said, I know you do. And she knows very little about me. So there's something in the connection and the radical lack of judgment that people can feel in these relationships that indicates to them that there's a deeper wisdom and empathy. It's almost like you don't have to say anything.
I never share. I tell them nothing. So it seems that people will share with me as they do with you. And I do think a lot of it, as you point out, is energetic. That people can feel that there is no judgment. You can never enter with judgment. And so I guess there are a couple of different paths to that.
What are those paths?
Oh, I think it really is just the power of listening, this sort of empathetic stillness that you can create in a relationship. And in many ways, it's a process that I find I can use and enter into successfully with someone I'm photographing. But perhaps I fail at doing that with people I love. Mm. And I think that we are not unusual in that as people that travel, and photojournalists and documentary photographers who are on the road a lot, and we come and go, and that we actually fracture our relationships in doing the work of documenting those who live fractured lives.
But we also get to see them piece those fractured parts together.
Yeah, but what about who we're accountable to? We're accountable to the story. We're accountable to the folks that we're photographing. But we're accountable to our own bodies and minds and to those we love. And I think at this time in my life, I'm finally looking at that last part. It took me all this time. And it's a profound journey.
Are you using this word fractured? I struggle with fractured because I feel like in every story, you know, I think about the last 3 years of being embedded in hospitals and COVID ICUs and being with people in the last moments of their lives, and then being with their families and their homes afterwards, and at funerals, that even in the depths of despair, there is joy, there is hope, there is grace. And I struggle with this tendency within photojournalism where we lean so heavily on the pain in the paradigm when there is glory too.
I know, but why do you go in the room? Why do you get to want the next assignment? Like, what makes that so urgent for you? Why is it never enough? It's that idea of an addiction. Whether you like the word or not, whether we like that word or not, I think that idea that we have a need to fill is not, that it needs to be part of the conversation because it drives us. And until we know what that is, we can't stop.
And being with that in mind in the lives of others for 40 years. Yeah. And I don't just mean going and meeting someone, which can be very meaningful, and I've had moments on assignment with people where I spend 2 hours with them and I still think of them very often, right? They leave a dent, and I remember them, which is so much a part of this work too. And in 40 years of being in strong connection with people, living in different conditions, having different conditions of the heart and the soul, do you see your story as you're immersed in the lives of others? Are you able to see your own story as Lynn?
That is such a great question. And I do think that the time that has passed is a critical part of that equation. The other day, I was trying to make some photographs of a child who is a medically fragile child. This child pretty much lives on the floor. And so I was down on the floor to try to photograph this little girl. And when I went to get up, I could not. My body was in so much pain. And I'm a really active photographer. I mean, I move around all the time. I could not get off the floor without pain. And I thought, oh my God, I think those 45 years of taking in other people's pain has finally caught up with me. And so perhaps something to think about, because you're another generation and you are still on your path. And I didn't take care of what I was taking in. I didn't acknowledge, and I think many photographers don't acknowledge the pain of what they take in, no matter what their subject matter is, no matter who they're photographing, where they're immersed. They are not aware that they are energetically taking in so many stories that it can supplant their own, hide their own, diffuse their own. And yes, we must know what our story is too. That is not a thing of ego, but that is a responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I know mine? I do now. I'm getting there.
You're getting there.
I'm
yeah.
getting there.
It's an ever-evolving process, right? In this work, and in our conversations in the lead up to this discussion, we talk also about the ineffable. Today there were so many incredible presentations, but we experienced and understood things in literal terms, right? And that's often how we understand story and this process. And that's just a result of the kind of industry we work in too. We need to be able to discuss, and we need to be able to sometimes reduce, unfortunately, to fit an article. We're dealing with the essence of human beings when we're working in this long form format. It is going beyond the social marker that we understand in conjunction with their lives. We're trying to see something greater, we hope to, right? And in that, and in these connections where I spend more time with the people I document in these many projects that I'm working on at the same time, like 6, 7 projects at the time, in different phases of development and relationship. And most of the people I've connected with, who I've spent years with, like Delilah, the young woman who I was able to see metamorphosize, or another woman I've worked with for a project I've actually never shared over the last 10 years. When I think about what was the impetus of all of that, I can't put it into words. There is something, despite the kind of concrete nature of documentary photography, there's something deeply mysterious, and I think we both agree on this. There's something ineffable about some of these connections with these people who we care about so deeply.
Yeah, absolutely. I really do believe the universe, or however you see that power, takes you to the project you need for the time of life, or the level of seeing, or your human development, for what you can contribute. Absolutely. So, but we also have a responsibility to people that we photograph to get that material out, to get the photographs out, to get the story out. And that's becoming more and more difficult, because the challenge of the world of publications today is a bit fraught.
Yeah.
So I think we need each other. Like this conversation, I consider a beginning, because I think we need each other to be innovative, to be in community, to create ideas, because we are ethically responsible to everyone we photograph. And I feel more and more at risk in that part of the dynamic, in that part of the equation. I can't promise anymore. I can't promise them that the material will be used, seen in the world. And when I say that to people, because I do now, I never used to, but I do now, they usually say, it's okay.
Mm.
It's just, this is enough.
Mm.
This is enough.
Yeah.
But not enough for me.
I think that when many of us enter this, as we walk this path as documentarians, with many of us wanting to use storytelling as justice making, as a way to bring awareness to issues, which is also important and certainly integral to the work. However, many of us don't see the level of change that comes from the work that we're aiming for on a broader scale. And I think what sustains us over so many years, a decade with someone, is knowing that the greatest justice is probably just in that connection alone, where someone is acknowledging that they feel seen and they're willing to have you around in some of the most challenging moments of their lives.
Doesn't that amaze you every time that someone allows you to stay? I mean, when I look at your images of the love triangle, for instance, it's extraordinary to me, well, many of the issues that you photographed, that you were able to be present. And
it does amaze me, and I think that that's an important part. Humility is such an integral part of this work. I feel that I drive away, for the most part, 99% of the time, I'm driving towards the people I'm photographing in Piatt County, Idaho, or Rio Doso, New Mexico, or Springfield, Missouri. I'm driving towards them, and I have that feeling that I'm about to see them. Or when I'm driving away from them, I feel deeply grateful. I'm a grateful photographer.
gratitude. So gratitude for the work, gratitude for you, gratitude for this opportunity to be in conversation, and thank you, Elizabeth Christ, for introducing us.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
We have one more. We have one more.
We have
thing
one
to
more
share
slideshow
with you?
to share with all of
Yeah.
you in closing. Thank you.
And thank you.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
But I think the greatest gift that anybody can ever give another is the gift of his or her honest self.